week. We know that COVID-19 testing and PPE are still some of the biggest concerns right now. And I want to assure you that we're doing all we can to address this issue. We continue to use both public and private resources to increase our testing capability and to set up more mobile units across the state. Our SEMA and DPS teams are also working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to get millions of the PPE for hospitals, law enforcement, and first responders. We're working out the logistics to get this important equipment to the people who need it quickly as possible. We will be receiving more shipments this week and in the weeks ahead. Public Safety Director Sandy Parson is here again today to provide more details on PPE. Commissioner Margie Van Dieven is also here today to provide updates from the Missouri Department of Secondary and Elementary Education. And Commissioner Zora Mulligan is here to give updates from the Missouri Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development. We know school closures have been another big topic of concern, and we want to make sure parents, teachers, administrators, and everyone else impacted by Missouri's education system are as updated as possible on the ongoing COVID-19 situation. As most Missourians are aware, all 555 of Missouri's public school districts and charter schools are currently closed, impacting nearly 915,000 students. And I want to thank our local teachers for their leadership they have shown during this challenging time for our state. School leaders in our state make decisions every day about the health and safety of their students. And it is important that they have the flexibility to do what they feel is best for their communities. Every school district is different, and it has been great to see so many schools working, find alternative education opportunities for our students. It is important. Remember that learning can take place in a variety of ways. Even though school buildings are closed, learning will still continue. In addition to learning, another big concern with school closures has been meals for students. So many students rely on school meals each day, and it has been heartwarming to see every public school in Missouri find a way to continue feeding their students during COVID-19 closures. We are proud of DESE for working quickly to secure the necessary USDA waivers to make this possible. Those waivers give schools the ability to prepare and serve meals even though they are closed. Our higher education institutions have also been severely impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. More than 350,000 students are enrolled in 2- and 4-year universities across Missouri. Many campuses have closed down but are working to meet the COVID-19 challenge by delivering courses and resources in new ways, such as moving to online classes. We also appreciate that colleges and universities are not only supporting their students and staff, but also their communities. Many universities are exploring how they can use their expertise, technology, and other resources to help during this time of crisis. COVID-19 is affecting everyone, but DESE and higher education have been working hard to remove barriers and provide more flexibility for schools so they can stay focused on the health and safety of their students and communities. Before I turn this over to Commissioner Van Dieven and Commissioner Mulligan for more updates, we will have Director Sandy Parson give an update on the public safety and the PPE. Director Parson.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon, everyone. In every disaster, there is a commodity that's in high demand. Sandbags in response to flooding, generators in response to an ice storm, roof tarps after a windstorm. With the corona pandemic, the precious commodity for everyone we work with is PPE, personal protective equipment. It is the number one issue we are hearing about, from hospitals to long-term health care facilities, from EMS, from the fire service, and from law enforcement. So let me give you an update on where we are today. COVID-19 emergency, Governor Parson has redirected $18 million from the budgets of several departments across state government to meet the critical need of PPE. The three main departments are the Department of Social Services, the Department of Health and Senior Services, and the Department of Public Safety, especially the state agency. Working day and night, our SEMA team has been working very hard to acquire PPE from commercial markets, from major suppliers to vendors on Amazon. As of 1 hour ago, our SEMA fiscal and operations staff have placed orders for a total of $17.3 million worth of PPE. They are purchasing the PPE materials that have been identified by the medical, healthcare, EMS, fire, and law enforcement communities. The single most requested item is N95 respirators. In response, we have purchased more than 4.2 million N95 respirators at a cost of $10 million. But we're also working to acquire everything from gloves and surgical masks and gowns to disinfecting wipes, hand sanitizers and goggles to biohazard bags. At last count, our SEMA staff has placed orders for 61,000 safety goggles, 95,000 three-layer surgical masks, over 7,400 surgical gowns, and over 335,000 bottles of hand sanitizer and many more PPE items. Again, we have placed orders to purchase more than $17 million worth of PPE out of the $18 million in the special authorization from Governor Parson. We expect to take delivery at our state warehouse over the next few weeks, and we have our logistics team and a distribution plan ready to go to turn the PPE around to the people who need it in the state as quickly as possible. We know that we will need additional PPE, and we're working to acquire more through other sources, including directly from FEMA through a direct federal assistance request through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. At the same time, we're encouraging our response partners to purchase PPE directly themselves when they have an opportunity to acquire it through their commercial vendors and to keep all their purchase documentation. Although the COVID-19 pandemic is still developing here in Missouri and across our nation, it is already clear it will have a more sweeping impact on the state of Missouri than any other previous disaster that has impacted our citizens. Just as there is an urgent need for federal and state assistance to help Missouri families meet the challenges we're facing, there's even a greater need for all of us to come together and help and support one another any way we can, whether that's checking on your neighbors or assisting with extra supplies that you may have. We ask that you help your partners, help our neighbors. We may be using social distancing to combat this situation, but we will succeed if we work together to overcome the challenges of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Next, I will have Commissioner Van Dieven come up and speak for DESE on DESE's part. Margie.
Thank you, Governor Parson, for your focus on the needs of our students during this time. Schools across our state are inspiring us all as they step up to help serve their students in any way they can during these unprecedented times. On behalf of the State Board of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we say thank you. We're working hard to remove barriers and provide the flexibility necessary for local school leaders so they can keep their focus on what matters most, the health and safety of their students and staff members and the communities they serve. In consultation and cooperation with the Governor's Office, A few steps we have taken to assist them in these efforts include, and as Governor Parson has just touched on, the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education proactively applied for 2 waivers from the USDA. These waivers support schools and communities in providing meals to children in areas experiencing school closure in response to COVID-19. And they were approved on Sunday, March 15th. As a result, all Missouri public schools are able to provide food services to the many students who rely on them each day. As school funding is based on student attendance, we communicated quickly with our school leaders about the issues as they navigate important decision-making decisions. Simply put, we are working in accordance with Missouri state statute to ensure that our school leaders are able to make school attendance decisions based on the safety and well-being of their students and staff. In addition to our school leaders, our teachers and school staff have demonstrated what commitment and doing what is best for students looks like. Recognizing that students can and should continue to learn throughout building closure, our educators have worked quickly to create ways to provide alternate educational opportunities for their students. One of the biggest ways we're taking their plates is by canceling statewide required academic assessments for the remainder of this school year. And we thank Governor Parson for his support on that effort and appreciate the quick response from the U.S. Department of Education on this issue. As I shared last week, there is a time and a place for statewide required assessments, and now is not that time. We applied for and received a waiver from the U.S. Department of Education on Friday, March the 20th. We worked with Governor Parson last week to waive the requirements for any remaining student teaching and internship activities that are not able to take place in schools because of closure. Great teachers matter, and these future educators have worked hard over the last 4 years preparing for this important career. DESE will ensure that these new educators get the certificates they have earned. There are numerous consequences associated with extended school closures, including the need for children for critical health care professionals and first responders. We are working with several other state agencies to identify child care gaps that may exist in Missouri communities, and we'll use this information to develop collaborative plans to help provide the needed child care for these important public servants. And speaking of gaps, in closing, I will recognize that there is no that this situation challenges the department's main mission of ensuring that all Missouri children have equitable access to opportunity. This morning, we asked school leaders to provide feedback regarding challenges that exist in reaching all students in their communities, specifically in regards to technology and high-speed internet access. We will use this information to better inform decisions and guidance at the state level amid extended school closures. We discussed this important issue today with the offices of our 2 U.S. senators, and during that call, they too asked that we extend their sincere gratitude and appreciation to our educators across our state. In this ever-changing and ever-evolving situation, there's new information to share all the time, virtually every hour. All department updates can be found on our DESE COVID-19 website. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margie. Next up, I will have the Commissioner Mulligan for Higher Education and Workforce Development, which are going to be 2 key areas, one now and one for the future. So, Zora.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with everyone virtually today as we're converting all of our meetings to these experiences. I welcome any questions you have for me now or any questions that you'd like to submit to our department. We're happy to work with you to answer your questions. Missouri's colleges and universities have played a huge role in coronavirus preparation and response. Their first order of business was making sure their students, faculty, and staff were safe and that students were getting the education they paid for. Although most students have left our college and university campuses, they'll be moving to online instruction to complete their coursework this semester. And I want to thank the faculty, administrators, and staff throughout the state for the countless hours you put in and will put in to making this massive switch. It's also important to note that it's also important to note that not all students have been able to go home, either because of logistical issues or because they don't have homes to return to. Our schools are continuing those students, just as they're pivoting to care for their communities as well. All around the state, there are phenomenal examples of the ways higher ed institutions are meeting local and regional needs, and I'm happy to highlight just a few of those today. Our colleges and universities have emptied out their supply closets to donate personal protective equipment to local emergency response agencies: gloves, masks, gowns, swabs, but also ventilators, healthcare providers, and experts. They're using 3D printers to manufacture personal protective equipment. They're ramping up food pantries to help members of their communities who might not have enough to eat, and they're donating food to daycares stood up to serve kids whose parents are on the front lines of our response to COVID-19. And they're also doing testing. The University of Missouri is providing a free online assessment tool that you can use to decide if you should seek testing. Mizzou's also administering hundreds of tests every day, and that number is increasing. So again, to everyone who's led through this transition, from cleaning crews to residence hall advisors to food service staff to faculty to IT support teams to your partners at the Department of Higher Education and Workforce Development, I say thank you. Your work is making a difference for your students, your communities, and your state. And to the students who've been affected by these changes, all I can say is hang in there. I know this hasn't been easy, and I know that there are few places more beautiful than a college campus in the springtime. It hasn't been easy, but it's important. Education changes lives, and that will undoubtedly be true for all you learn between now and the end of the semester. At the department, we're also working on making changes to make sure that students are able to continue to use the services and receive the benefits that we provide to support their education. Last week, we made some announcements regarding temporary changes to the A+ program, which is a very important scholarship program in the state of Missouri. We've got about 13,000 students throughout the state who used the A+ award to pay for tuition and general fees, mostly at community colleges last year. Because of high school closures and because of college closures, we've had to issue temporary guidance about the program to make sure that students are still eligible for the fall. So the temporary change includes eligibility requirements for grade point averages, full-time enrollment status, and mentoring and tutoring hours. We've tried to make changes to reflect the reality of the situation in which in which students find themselves now living. These changes only apply to 2020 high school seniors and college students who are renewing A+ for the 2021 academic year. We'll be continuing to provide additional guidance. One of the big questions we've gotten from counselors is about the A+ requirement for Algebra 1 testing and end of course exam requirement. So please stay tuned for that information. Like DESE, we've got a webpage up that provides a lot of information about COVID-19, and that's dhewd.mo.gov/COVID-19. Thank you very much, and I look forward to entertaining any questions.
Commissioner, thank you very much. Again, I just want to say that all the directors from all the departments are working hard every day trying to find solutions to a crisis. And I couldn't be more proud of the work they're doing. And I also want to say for the people around the state, there has been so many people in the private sector who's reached out to the governor's office and offered their assistance, all the way from buying some of the materials that we so desperately need, all the way from the test kits, all the way to the PPE, the personal protective equipment for our first line people. We've had people reach out to places like China, like Mexico, all over the world. Businesses in the state are trying to help. Businesses are offering to retool. Here in Missouri, where we don't have to be so dependent on other states bringing us product. And I think those are the kind of things that show the backbone of who we are in Missouri. People stepping up every day, trying to do the right thing to help one another. So with that, we'll answer a few questions. Kelly?
Okay, the first question is from Kurt Erickson from the same. Governor, he'd like to know, your budget proposal is based on a 1.9% growth of tax revenue. Has that changed at all? And if so, what areas are you looking to cut or possibly find the money in those areas?
There's no doubt the original budget we proposed is going to change drastically. There will be major changes as we move forward. And none of the numbers that we figured back before the first year is realistically as we do here, or we are here today. And the fact is, between now and June, the fiscal year of the state of Missouri, have to be made. Many, many changes will have to made. It doesn't take much to realize the economy's in the shape it's in today, and you know it's going to continue to slide till we get on top of the virus that's out there, and we do everything that we can. It's why it's so important, again, to make sure you remember the order that we told you to do. Less than 10 people, 6 feet apart, stay at home if you don't need to be out. Those have to be done. The quicker we get those things done, the quicker we can get back to the economy where it needs to be.
All right, Governor, this is from Steve Grant, KY3. He would like to know, will Missouri set up COVID-19 treatment wards, so to speak, as in maybe parking garages, maybe athletic stadiums, or unused hospital wings?
On the question of where we go to alternative locations for COVID-19 patients or other patients, for whatever, every day we have a contingency plan where we're looking at buildings across the state of Missouri and every community all across the state, how we might be able to do that. We've been in connection with the Guard, with FEMA every day. We've been in touch with the Corps of Engineers that can come in and build actually facilities or refurbish others. But we're talking about that every day to have those sites available. And yes, we're planning that every day and we'll continue to do that.
All right, Governor, this one is also for you from Brian Hosworth, Missouri Net. Governor Parson, you said Friday that legislators need to return to Jefferson City and approve